Warning. This podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis and trans women. If you are genderqueer, gender fluid, figuring it out, anything in between, and feel like this conversation is also important for you, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Sweet romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all, and welcome to Jace Reads Romance. As you can tell, this is Michael and not Jace, but I just wanted to do a brief intro to this episode. Jace is on their medical leave. They are doing great. They will be back soon. But this episode, we wanted to treat you all with. Jace went to Love Y'all, a convention where they got to meet many authors, sit on panels, and listen to them discuss. And every single panel that they went to, they asked a question. So these are the questions that Jace asked and the episode that we put together. Mind you, the audio was taken by Jace's phone while they were sitting in the audience. It's pretty good, but Jace also intros each one of the questions as well as the panels and the panelists that are sitting on them. So enjoy.
Different. If you listen to our regular episodes, you might be aware that I went to Love Y'all, which is a romance book conference in Decatur, Georgia. And while I was there, I was able to attend 11 panels and ask questions in 9 of them. No, 12 panels and ask questions in 9. And I recorded the answer to these questions, and I have them here for you. So you might also notice it's just me. So what I'm going to do is give you the context, the name, and the description of each panel that I was at, as well as tell you who answered each question. I'm not necessarily going to go through all the authors that attended each panel because sometimes they didn't answer, and I don't want to call anybody out. They didn't feel like they had anything to say, or we were running out of time. Lots of other reasons. I'll tell you who answered the questions that I asked. The sound quality is also highly suspect because I recorded videos of my questions being answered on my phone. I wasn't able to hand anyone a mic. I wasn't able to do anything fancy. It's just me being a bit of a creeper, if I'm honest, bit of a creeper. But I got some really great answers. I feel so lucky that I got to ask these great questions, and I hope that you enjoy them as much as I did. This question came from the opening keynote, which was a conversation between Julian Winters and Sonora Reyes. These two humans write primarily queer books. They started in YA and they have adult novels out now. Julian Winters just released his first adult novel, and Sonora Reyes as well. And I asked a question specifically about the 2 books of theirs that I had read. For Julian Winters, it was Prince of the Palisades, and for Sonora Reyes, it was The Broposal, B-R-O-posal, because both of these books introduced consent and conversations around sex. In Prince of the Palisades, literal consent, someone who hasn't had sex talking with someone who has, and the person who has introducing the idea of consent, the importance of it, and their desire to continue the conversation, and that it's okay to say no and things don't need to progress. And in The Proposal, one of the characters is kinky and introduces kink to his partner. And I asked, why did they choose to show these conversations, and what do they hope people who read them learn from them, potentially emulate in the future?
So, like you said, I do get annoyed when people are like, oh, talking about it is like makes it unsexy or whatever. So it's just kind of like, no, it actually is so sexy to talk about it. Like, actually, it's so sexy. And so, like, with The Proposal, there is like a little bit of kink exploration, and like one of them is more experienced than the other in that area. So there's going to be conversations, and like in order to do things safely, like you have to kind of have conversations. And I was trying to like break that away. Like, 'cause for me, like having that conversation makes it feel so much better, and I'm automatically like feeling safer and feeling like more comfortable. And I feel like, yeah, how is that not sexy? Like, I don't know. Like, I like that. So for me, I was like, I kind of wanted to just have that conversation be something that like did feel like a part of the almost like lead up, you know? So yeah.
I, especially because Prince Palisades is a young adult novel, I thought it was very important to have conversations surrounding consent, and not just like that one talk. Like, consent is continuous. It does not stop at any stage of intimacy. And I thought it was very important to have that in a young adult book, but also I definitely put it into like my adult books also because, again, I think it's very sexy because what I want and what I like is also continuously changing. One day I want pepperoni pizza, and 5 minutes later I want pineapple. Like, that is just who I am. So during something that is so intimate and so vulnerable as sex or any kind of intimacy, it's so important for you to have those questions where like, is this okay? Is this what you want? Talk to me about what you want. Ask all the questions that you want to ask. And I think that is sexy to know and want to be there for your partner. So I definitely included for those reasons. The other reason I included specifically in terms of Palisades is growing up, there was no discussion around queer sex. And so the education was very lacking. And I thought it's very important to have these conversations for anyone who may identify as queer, to know these are some of the healthy things that should be discussed with you and your partner going into things. And just to think about those things, like have those in the back of your mind. If someone makes you feel uncomfortable asking any questions or changing your mind about something or wanting to go a different route, then that is not the person you should be sharing any kind of intimate, romantic, or any kind of relationship with, because your partner should be someone who is continuously evolving with you.
This next panel was titled Building a Multicultural Romance Canon. The description is expanding romance through diverse stories, cultures, and perspectives to create a truly inclusive genre. And the question that I asked of these authors, who were a panel of diverse authors, is what can we as consumers do proactively to support and tell trad specifically that these are stories that we want to hear and we want more of? The responses that you'll hear come from Ava Rani, Jessica Para, Adib Karam, and Danica Nava.
Pre-ordering the books really helps traditional publishers get an idea of what they're going to put towards marketing for your book, right? And so especially if it's an underrepresented voice, that helps get the word out. Often underrepresented voices don't have the economic means to kind of like go on their own book tour or something like that. So pre-orders are great. Spreading the word about the books and then ordering them or purchasing them yourself, also great. Obviously we love and respect all the support we get. So any of those is wonderful. I would say I think pre-orders is probably the biggest thing because it kind of gets traditional publishing to see this as something worth investing in terms of promotion, and so we can get that book out to more readers. So I don't know if anyone else has other ideas.
I'm rating and reviewing on all this stuff. I think even a year ago, it was 100 reviews to get into the algorithm. I think now it's 300. So yeah.
Keep a spreadsheet. Every book you buy, audit yourself. It's easy to say that you want diverse romances, but if you bought 8 diverse romances and then 12 different editions of Iron Flame, you are in fact not doing the work that you say you're doing. So pay attention. Buy one
facts on facts.
Pardon?
You're laying facts on facts.
No, it's true. No, I can tell myself, I noticed I wasn't reading very much sapphic romance, and I was like, I love queer romance, and it was all dudes touching butts, and I looked at my spreadsheet, and I was like, oh, I audited myself and found I'm liking that, and so I made a conscious choice. So it's easy to tell yourself you want to do a thing. Follow up with yourself, track your numbers, and put your money where your mouth is.
Thank you guys so much for sitting.
Okay, this was one of my fanfic panels, and this one was titled Surfing the Fanfic to Romance Pipeline, how fan fiction is fueling the romance genre, turning passion into published stories. And this is where like my brain didn't ask a question that was then answered in the way that I thought it would be. So my brain thought it asked the question, do y'all now trad published authors use fanfic as a way to explore new genres or new tropes or new things as a writer? And what I actually got back from these authors is that fanfic is still a place that they go to fill their creative cup, to feel connected, to like be a fan again, and still, I think, really stay grounded. And so it's how they get that inspiration rather than where they practice their craft. The people who answered were Julie Soto. You hear Zio Axelrad at the beginning and end, Meryl Wilsner, Preeti Shibber, and Julian Winters was the moderator and threw in his 2 cents at the end there.
Interview with the Vampire. Season 1 is available on Netflix. But I would say, for me at least, I will have like years of like turning off my fan fiction brain, and then you just like go see Challengers, and you need to return to AO3. First time, what? You would like to talk Challengers?
Yeah, I'm late to Challengers. I just watched it yesterday. I've got ideas. I've got 2 fans in there.
Oh yeah, Allie already investigated. I was sitting with Allie and friends in Challengers in New York. The credits roll, the phone comes out, and AO3 came up. Like, she would not get out of her chair until she'd established if there was a tag for Challengers on AO3. But I would say I come back to fanfic either when I'm like fully immersed, I find a new fandom to be fully immersed in, or when I truly should be writing something else that's paying me money. and you know, to find the joy again. But also reading is similar, like finding when you're looking for something to scratch an itch and you're like, AO3 don't come back.
Yeah, I think it for me, I haven't had any fandoms that I've been that like obsessed with lately. And I think to be fair, part of it is that I'm obsessed with myself. It's you. So I'm like the flailing over characters that I might have previously done in fanfic. I'll just do that about my own characters to my friends instead. So I haven't been as immersed in it as I used to be. But yeah, if something comes up that I'm like, well, let me pull up it. I know it's always coming back.
Yeah. I feel like when I'm in a new fandom, that's the first step. Like, this is a hyperfixation. I need to know everything that's on the internet about this thing that I watched 47 episodes for, and I will deep dive into it. I do it anonymously though, because we didn't talk a lot about IP, but I write a lot of IP, meaning like I write other people's characters, and I always am like, will someone pay me to do this? So I'm not going to say that I'm already doing it.
I want to write fanfic of my own series. Because the Lily series is 4 books, but they're all these like side characters that I want to write stories about that they're not going to pay me to do. So I might like create my own fandom. That tag going. Get that tag going on the AO3. You guys jump in whenever you want to. I read fic when I want, like you said, there's an itch that only fic can scratch. Like right now I'm in the drama, thanks to you.
Welcome.
But I'm trying to think. I don't think there's a fandom that's really grabbed me lately. Like, it's been strong for the last 10 years. Yeah. Oh, I guess Yuri on Ice. Yeah. Oh, my people. Yes, you have. Yeah, Yuri on Ice and Heartstopper. Yuri on Ice. I feel like that fandom was like that. It was gone.
Because they ripped it from our hands.
We need to bring it back.
That's why.
What was the madness? Where is the movie?
Exactly.
This panel, I am so lucky. Every single author was able to respond to this question, so I just feel incredibly grateful. It's the longest clip we have. The panel was called "Romantasy is Here to Stay." the place where romance and fantasy converge, creating tales of love set in magical realms. And so many of these authors write powerful women or women with powers. And what do they want women to learn about themselves by reading about women with these powers, and like hope that they learn from it and glean from it? And I loved it. And also, I don't know if you hear this, but the first thing I shout out after that to Angela Montoya is that Rosa from Sinner's Isle is a shadow mommy, and I want shadow mommy to become a thing. So in order of who answered, it is Claire Legrand, Angela Montoya, Kate Dramis, Allison Saft, Gabby Burton, and Brigid Kemmerer. Enjoy talking about women with powers.
One of the many things that I would like people to take away from my books is that there are many different ways to be a powerful woman. Some forms of power are big and flashy. You have magic you can use to do things, and some forms of power are quiet courage or compassion and kindness. And so I really hope that the people who read my books and experience the stories of these very different heroines are able to see and appreciate the different kinds of strength that different kinds of women have, especially women who are dealing with mental health challenges, since that's a big passion for me. Like, those women can also fall in love and save the day, even though they're dealing with debilitating panic attacks or depression or, again, unresolved childhood trauma. Like, they can still be the heroes, and even if their like strength looks different and feels different from others, doesn't make it any less valid.
I really love that. I think for Rosa in Sinner's Isle, her power is literal, like it manifests itself in shadows and phantoms, and she can control these things, these creatures. And at the beginning of the story, she really tries to hold that back. She tries to hold her power back because she's afraid to be messy, to hurt somebody. She's afraid to cause a ruckus. And truly, when I wrote that story, well, and unfortunately, even still to now, I was really at a part in my life where it felt like we were discussing about women's rights, what women can do with their bodies, what they can't do with their bodies. And so I wrote her, and she has no control of what she can do with her body in the beginning of the story. And towards the end, spoiler, not really, but towards the end, I really and truly wanted her to just break free and to just burn the patriarchy down. I wanted her to be messy and to show that it's okay to cause a scene, and that if you don't feel right about what's happening with yourself, then cause the scene. For Carolina, she doesn't have like magical powers, but she and her family are vampire hunters. And she really wants to join the men in her family and doing this. And so she presses and she pushes and she does all these things. But really what I found as I was writing this, and again in my own life, was the power of community. And that became her magic power. Her cousin, her friend, her family, that became like the knife. And so yeah, those were the things that were running through my head when I was writing these stories.
For me, so I've always been drawn to unlikable characters, or characters that are deemed unlikable, and I end up absolutely loving them. And I was a divergent girly when I was younger, and I was like really drawn to Tris, and I was like, there's something about you I don't like, but I love you and I would kill for you. And so in writing Saints, when I was writing Aya, I really wanted to show a character who doesn't believe that she can save the world because of her faults, and truly believes that and internalizes that. But instead of having to become someone different, it's really about her self-acceptance. And so she finds her power in accepting these areas of herself that are messy and are a little sharp and not, palatable. And that was the message that I really wanted people to get, is that it's okay to have these sharp edges, and it's okay to be messy, and it's okay to feel like you can't do something. about learning what makes you unique and accepting your power and stepping into that.
No, this is an interesting question. I'm like trying to think how I would approach it, because I feel like when I write a book, it's not necessarily anything I want people to take away from my books. I sort of consider it my job to just present you with an interesting person and let you kind of decide what to do with them. The question of power is interesting though, because I think I tend to gravitate like to these people who aren't traditionally strong or kind of on the margins of society. Like Dark Valentine is a secondary fantasy world, pseudo-historical, like 19th century Prussia. The protagonist is Jewish coded, so she kind of deals with the unacceptance of the society has made herself very sharp and unpleasant, and essentially to shape herself into the monster that everyone believes that she is. Her idea of power is to gain this sort of political significance that nobody can hurt her ever again. By the end of the book, she kind of does that, but kind of doesn't. I almost feel like the fantasy in my books, there is an adjective to kind of question, but I feel like the true fantasy in a way is like this. Most of my characters, like, I watched too much shonen anime as a child, so I just felt the healing power of friendship and love is sort of all of my books in a way. So I feel like there is a certain way in which each character sort of elevates the other beyond what disempowers or holds you back. But in the Far World Magic, Margaret she has a friend, so it's kind of like her way of dealing with her. And got magic.
Sorry, I should have apologized. In Sing Me to Sleep, I think Saoirse is like a character who very much like exemplifies the idea. You know, sometimes women do bad things, and sometimes they're a little messy. And I do feel like messy might be underselling it. She is like a murderer. She kills a lot of people. I think like maybe it's not fully encapsulating that, but. What I think I wanted people to take away from her character, so a lot of what she struggles with is that she is like a very powerful person, creature in terms of, you know, she can like sing and make men like, you know, die, and that's great. But what complicates it is that she doesn't know if she can fully control that, so then is she powerful if she can't control her own power? And part of her journey and like her story is like regaining control over herself through learning more about her kind. So like, because a lot of them, all of them, as far as she knows, have been killed off, there's a lot about her history, her culture, her kind that she doesn't know. And so kind of regaining her power, meaning like, you know, her agency, her ability to use her power is learning more about herself, and whether or not she believes what other people tell her sirens are supposed to be. And so that's like her sort of regaining her power.
I agree with all of you. I think it's one of the greatest things about writing romantasy, and just about writing fantasy in general, is there's really no wrong way to write a woman into it. I don't think there's any wrong way to explore our own femininity, right? I love writing female characters. I love being able to explore all the different ways that we can be powerful. You know, even speaking for myself, you know, I love weightlifting, but I also love going to get my nails done. Right? I love being a mom, and I love snuggling with my kids and baking bread and like feeding the family, but I also love going out on the road and promoting my books and showing my kids that I can be a successful career woman, right? And I love putting that into my books too. You know, I love writing girls who love wearing pretty dresses, but also don't care if they get muddy while they're wearing them. You know, in the Defy the Night trilogy, I love my character Tessa. You know, she's an apothecary and she wants to heal people. She's very soft, she's very compassionate. She really just wants to do the best for people. And sometimes people give me a hard time. They're like, Tessa's always crying. I'm like, well, I'm always crying. And, you know, but Tessa also, you know, scales walls and breaks into houses and steals medicine for people who can't afford it. And I don't know, I think it's one of my favorite things about writing fantasy and writing romantasy is just writing those kinds of characters. So and I loved hearing all of you talk about it. Who else?
So this next panel was another fanfic. I know, crazy. And it was called Holy Ships. Hop aboard as we talk about all things ships, favorite couples, wild pairings, and the ones that stole our hearts. Throughout the conversation, they were talking about their writing process and how things evolve. And so my question was, to this panel of authors who has written, all of them have written multiple books across genres or subgenres. Do they find that the more that they write, the more complexity they bring to their writing? And in order of answer, it was Ashley Poston, Kimberly Lemming, F.T. Lukens, and Allie Hazelwood.
I started out writing about hot dragons and nachos, and this next book was really just a love letter to my deep-seated hatred for corrupt capitalism. So, yeah, I'd say it's gotten a bit more complex.
Yeah, I went from a fairy tale to an allegory for conversion therapy.
I still kill all my parents, so there's always a dead dad somewhere.
I think it depends on the book more than, I don't know, I don't think writing is a linear thing where you go more and more complex necessarily. It depends on kind of what is happening in your life in that moment for me, so I don't know. I think maybe some books are more serious than others.
If y'all remember the Holy Ships panel where I asked a question, this has nothing to do with that answer, but Rachel Moore, who was the moderator, created a Mad Libs. And it was the last panel on Saturday. We all couldn't believe that she was asking these authors for, another adjective. But I just need to share with you what we ended up with because it was magical.
See, this is what you get.
Yeah. We have
You
a
chose
short
it.
story by Ashley Poston, F.T. Lukens, Kimberly Lemming, and Allie Hazelwood. In Bonerville, love was the last thing on Isaac from Ghost's mind. A dedicated elephant whisperer, they had far too many strawberries to deal with. That is, until a bonery encounter changed everything. It started when Isaac from Ghost was questing.
Stop now.
In Movie World. When they suddenly boned straight into Mr. Bones. The hard war general. Who had been morally gray for as long as they could remember. Hell yeah, they were! Watch where you're voting, Mr. Bones. Isaac from Ghost snapped, brushing their stockings and looking every bit as greasy as ever. But Mr. Bones says, I've been thinking about something for so long because they hated each other, but fate had other plans. Because Mr. Bones whispered, I have to tell you the truth. And Isaac from Ghost swallowed hard. What truth? No, I'm actually unwell. I never expected to see you here, Isaac from Ghost. And meeting you today has changed my life irrevocably. And just like that, they sat in love.
This next panel was called The Hottest Takes. It's time to stir the pot with the spiciest opinions on romance. Bring your fire extinguisher. It was a really well done panel. So Ambar Cordova did a great job moderating it. My question was, often hot takes are opinion. They're not facts. And how do we handle people sharing things under the guise of opinions that are factually incorrect? And because that's happening a lot right now. Well, this is just my opinion. No, you're just telling lies. Like, an opinion is something that you have about certain facts. Like, I can think that fluffy clouds are prettier than gray clouds. They are clouds, but like saying clouds don't exist, that's not an opinion, that's a falsehood. So that was my question, is like, how do we handle this? And the answers came from Meryl Wilsner, Preeti Shibber, and Ambar Cordova. Enjoy. Or not enjoy, but let it sit with you.
To the best of your ability, my ability is to not do that. I don't need to spend my mental health talking to someone who doesn't believe that I am a person or that I have dignity. That's right. So I personally am going to not do that. However, obviously we all have different privileges, and if we can and have the emotional capacity to talk back to people who are doing, spreading false information, that's great. And I do want people to do that. And so to the best of your ability, which may be not at all.
Yeah, because there's always the danger of elevating something that doesn't need to be elevated by engaging with it. So it's really a case by case. Like, if you think it's someone who is truly like, their mind can be changed, or you can combat what they're saying for their audience, although we have seen how that doesn't necessarily work in a public setting. So it's case by case, I think.
Yeah, and I do think as you said, in a public setting, I think on a personal level, if you know people in real life who feel certain ways, those are the people to try to talk to, because that is going to be, I think, much more likely to create some kind of change than a stranger on the internet.
And just to add a little bit to that, if it's someone like in real life that you know too, like, ask yourself, am I okay with never talking to this person again?
There is that.
It's one of those things that, like, if I'm going to speak up, am I okay with like never talking to you again? Because, if the answer is no, then you have to sit with like what you're going to do with that. It's one of those things. But in public, personally, I just belong.
Yeah.
This panel is called The Road Less Romanced: How Romance Thrives in Unexpected Places with Unconventional Characters and Storylines That Break All the Rules. And it was primarily with authors who do that. Something about their books breaks the more conventional molds. But the question I asked was, like, to these authors who break conventions so frequently, are there things that they won't break, they find sacred, or just really annoy them when they're done in a certain way?
I mean, in romance, I really do like the happily ever after or the happily for now. In YA, I always say that I like finishing my books with leaving my readers with a sense of hope. It's really, really important to me. I love ending on that kind of note, every single book that I write. So I do find it really, really annoying when somebody's like, this is a romance, and then it's totally not a romance.
And then it doesn't end with a happy ending.
Yeah, and so that does feel like a really sacred rule that just really shouldn't be broken.
I like a true enemies to lovers, because a lot of times you get enemies to lovers, but they're not really enemies. I think it's fine to differentiate between the different types of enemies, adversaries, rivals to lovers, but like a true enemies to lovers, they have to have like a really good reason as to why they hate each other. And I just think it leads to such delicious banter and just pining, sexy pining. But when it's done right, like, yes, give them all to me.
Oh man, I loved this. This was love interests and industry checklists. Crafting the love interest of our dreams while keeping industry trends and reader expectations in mind. How to make it all come together. And my question was, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about traditional publishing or the traditional publishing industry, what would it be? And the answers came from Faye Delacour, Rachel Moore threw in some 2 cents, Tobias Madden, Joe Segura, and you can hear Penny Reed, who was the moderator, at the end of this recording.
I wish that traditional publishing would take more risks. I feel like, considering that a lot of authors don't even really get big advances, and that's been getting worse and worse, and advances are like split into like 4 payments over 2 years that no one could live off of. It's like, well, you're not risking that much money anyway. So I wish that it wouldn't, I feel there's a tendency, there's a book that breaks out, it's super successful, and then it's like, okay, everybody for the next 3 years, you're all gonna pitch, my book is that book meets whatever. My book is like gender swapped that book. I wish there was more, like, you take a chance on a different story, especially if you're not throwing a bunch of money behind it. Just let authors write different things, and some of them won't catch on and some of them will catch on, and I mean that's what happens anyway, right? Like, not every book catches on, so it wouldn't be any worse than it is now, but you might get more interesting stories, I think.
Anybody else? I wish there were more mustaches.
I wish that they would never publish another fantasy book called A Something of Something and Something. Because if anyone can tell any of them apart, I take my hat off to you, honestly. I think we have to be done with that, right? Like, give us an actual title, not just some nouns and an adjective. Like, that's really anything.
Okay.
Sorry, my name's gone.
That was for the hot takes panel earlier.
Sorry.
No, you're great. You're good. I'm just teasing you. Anybody else?
Too late, I'm gonna say. I wish that when there was something that was really popular and finally authors of color start writing that they don't say, we're done with this thing, we're not doing this anymore.
That's a really good one. Can we get some applause for that? Everything you want to do.
Okay, this was the closing keynote, a conversation with Amelie Howard, whose conversation partner was Allie Hazelwood. I was just like dying. They were amazing. But my question for these two was, there are a lot of new romance readers in the last 5 years, and there are a lot of decades-long romance readers. What do you hope that the romance readers who are newer learn quickly? And what do you hope that the romance readers who've been reading for a long time remember as a reader?
I mean, for me, romance is about hope. So even when I was a teenager reading it and I wasn't allowed to date because my mom was really strict, so all my boyfriends were like book boyfriends, all my girlfriends were book girlfriends. I mean, I feel like just the idea that it's a safe space is something that is kind of eternal when it comes to romance. For newer readers, that romance isn't about smut shaming or shaming pleasure or shaming, like I spoke about before, asking for what it is we need and deserve from your partner, multiple partners, whatever whatever you enjoy. And then for readers who are longtime romance readers, just try to read outside of what your comfort zone is, because you might find something in another thing that you wouldn't necessarily normally read and be blown away. So,
yeah, for me, that, of course, but also just the fact that romance has been like a gateway in a way, or a way to build community. It has been for the longest time, and it still is like, look at how many people are here, and just I don't feel like I don't want to be that person, but like, have you seen the Thriller girlies in a room like this? I haven't. So I think the other genre is like quite like so.
That's all. And I say that's all, but I feel like I got a lot of good answers. And I'm not the only person who got to ask questions. The first thing I want to shout out is all the people who moderated these panels did an incredible job and were so put together. You didn't hear it because she did something totally different, but Vanessa Riley created a whole game show with cards that had wax seals on them. She's a historical romance author. Of course she has personalized stationery with wax seals. Unbelievable. But so number one, shout out to them, to the authors who did this, 3, the people who created this whole thing, 4, the other people who asked questions that I didn't feel comfortable recording, and just all y'all for listening to this. It was an incredible experience, and I hope that you got out of this everything that I did when I got to ask these questions of some amazing authors. Bye. Jace Reads Romance is a 3 Paws Productions podcast. Produced by Sephi, edited by Michael Achenbach. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. For show notes and more, head to www.jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow us on socials at Jace Reads Romance everywhere. Have a question, story, or book recommendation you know I'll love? Email Jace at jacereadsromance.com or call and leave a voicemail at 661-JACE-RR. That's 661-529-2377. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, this is Jace, holding space for you.